we have this peculiar three-pronged situation. We have a pattern in the King Wen sequence taken by an Irishman and contorted into a mathematical wave which gives a prediction for the apotheosis of the world which matches the assumptions of a vanished Mesoamerican civilization. Huh? Why? A strange thing about the Mayan calendar is it begins in, I believe, 3135 BC, and it ends in 2012. The Mayan civilization began, as far as anybody can tell, around 300 BC and was a done deal by 790 AD. So here was a culture that lived by a calendar that seemed to have no relationship to its own cultural origins or ends. That's odd. I mean, that's not how people do a calendar. The other weird thing about the Mayan calendar is it begins on a slow Thursday in August. In other words, it doesn't begin at a solstice. It doesn't begin at an equinox. It doesn't begin with a special astrological configuration in the sky. It begins on Nothing Burger Day in 3135 BC. Well, but it runs forward to a winter solstice and ends precisely on a winter solstice. Who ever heard of a calendar that was formed by calculating backward from a point thousands of years in the future? What kind of squirrely culture would do that? And the answer is, we don't know. But yes, this is a great puzzle that the Mayans seem weirdly disconnected from their own calendar. An astonishing thing about the date that I arrived at by this method is that it's the same date that the Mayan civilization appointed for the end of its calendar in all eternity. You know, you may choose not to believe that I didn't know this when I made this prediction, but I didn't know it. I didn't, and yet I chose not the month, not the same year, the same day, month, and year. Well, nobody knows, but I asked myself this question. I said, what do I have in common with the Maya that we both should reach the same conclusion? I have only one thing in common with the Maya: psychedelic mushrooms. And so then it raises the possibility, well, then is this thing like got a barcode in it? That, you know, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, eventually you get down to the bottom line and you turn over the carton and it says discard before December 21st, 2012 AD. That apparently is the witching hour. Now, I don't present this to you as you should believe me. I wasn't told this by a god. This was not revealed to me by a former incarnation. I myself am more provisional. I will advocate this, but I'm aware, more I think than many in my audience, how unlikely this is. I'm basically a devil's advocate because I'm fascinated with the fact that I thought this up, and this is not my style. It's hard for you to believe that because I've been now talking about it since 1971. So it has become me in a sense, but it isn't me. This is not how I think. This is not how I ever thought. I had to be led by the hand. I'm sloppier than this. I'm not precise. This was told to me, and it's eerie. It's turned my life to science fiction. This is what I learned from psychedelics. This is my show and tell. it's an indulgence of my ego to do this, because most of what I tell you, you could learn somewhere else. I just have read the books and can regurgitate this stuff, point you toward the plants, lead you through the philosophical issues, talk about the medical stuff. It's not particularly flashy. It's just a mental shortcut for you. This is original, and nobody has ever tried to wrest it from my grasp. That's how original it is. Nobody else wants the hideous responsibility of defending this particular piece of intellectual baggage. It also has a kind of weird completedness about it, even though nobody has made any contribution to this theory but me. In other words, I thought it up, top to bottom, start to finish. It doesn't feel to me like a human being could do that. It feels to me like it would take, that this is the product of an entire civilization. It must have taken hundreds of years, many workers spread out in space and time. I can tell it, and I was told it. That's how I know it. But no single individual, and certainly not myself, could have dreamed this up from scratch. Yeah.
How long were you told over time? How long did the conversation take place?
You mean before I had the whole thing?
Yeah.
From 1971 to 75. And it was interesting, and this I cannot ever share with anybody else. You'll just have to believe me. But the way it was revealed was very odd, because it never let me see where I was going. I couldn't figure out what I was doing. I mean, it said, go buy graph paper. Go get your I Ching. Look at the King Wen sequence. Graph the first order of difference. And I would try and guess, what are we doing? Are we discovering an ancient Chinese calendar? Why are we doing this? It said, no, don't worry about that. Just keep, next step. And it always hid from me where I was headed. It still hides from me where I'm headed. And the software has been written, the controversy rages on the internet. I even now have critics. That's good. That shows that it is moving out of the realm of private Idaho into the realm of debatable cultural artifact. The producers of nitwit TV shows want to talk to me. They say, I understand you have a way of predicting the future given to you by UFOs, I heard. We want to put you on the air. Well, I'm not sure about the wisdom of all of this. But I figure, let the meme fight for its life in the jungle of competing models of reality. When I pull back from the specificity and the fact that I invented it, that's my biggest problem. If I hadn't invented this, if I just heard that somebody invented it and this is what it was, I think I would find it very interesting. But since I know the inventor very well, I'm very prone to doubt the thing. I don't know. I'm puzzled, and I offer it as an unsolved puzzle. I preached here earlier that you mustn't seek closure, and so I don't with this. If it's a communication, it's a very curious communication. If it is non-communication, it's even more curious. If it's a delusion, why is it so mathematically formal? If I'm pathological, why aren't there attendant sequelae? Why just this very defined thing? The whole thing smacks of the impossible. It's a prophecy that all that really matters is the final date. And then I being sane, believe nothing will happen. And yet, if nothing happens, what a curious trip this has been. What then was the raison d'etre of this whole exercise? Why did it offer itself, and why was it inherently self-limiting? If it's an effort to deceive, an effort to deceive would never be so foolish as to crawl out on the limb of such a clear statement of prophecy. So if it is disconfirmed by events in 2012, then we will be in the peculiar situation of having had a time wave which worked every moment in history until it failed totally. And again, I can't imagine what the point of that communication would be.